Are you ready? Stand by.
Welcome to the 3Gun Show, episode 109. I'm your host, Dave Hartman. My guest this week is Boise State rugby player, former CMP Junior Olympian, and Team iScope shooter, Cody Leeper. Cody and I talk about some next-level mental game concepts, including developing your own system for matches and practicing with no ammunition and no guns. Seriously. But before we get into this interview, I want to thank you for downloading and listening to the show. The 3Gun Show is a weekly podcast where each week I bring you an exciting new episode featuring an awesome 3-gun athlete, manufacturer of multi-gun specific products, and sometimes both. If you like the show, there are multiple ways of supporting the podcast, including using our affiliate links when you shop at Brownells, Amazon, Cabela's, and Optics Planet. Just go to 3gunshow.com/support for the links. And don't forget to pick up your copy of the 3Gun Show match checklist free by going to 3gunshow.com/checklist. You can get yours. Just enter your email, and you will receive a free PDF download that includes everything that Jensen Jones takes with him when he travels for a match, as he told us in episode 30 of the podcast. This checklist will help you pack for all the matches that you're going to do in 2017. And now, please enjoy this interview with Cody Leeper. Cody, welcome to the 3Gun Show.
How's it going?
It's going well, man. I'm happy to have you here. It's good to speak with you. A lot of people have recommended that I have you on the podcast, and we connected with a pretty interesting topic that I think the audience is going to like here. So I'm pumped for this interview here.
Yeah, me too. It's definitely a pleasure to be on.
Well, I want to like I said, we've got a great topic, but I want to give the audience an idea of who you are personally. So let's take it back a little bit here and. Who are you when you're not shooting? What do you do off the range?
Well, I'm currently a college student. I have a associate's degree in communication, one in criminal justice, and I'm working on my bachelor's in psychology. I'm going to Boise State, and during all this, I'm playing rugby for them. It's a club sport, but it's treated like a Division I sport. They're trying to expand it across the U.S., and it is a crazy fun time. Other than that, during the summers, I work for a general contractor and just slave away at that.
Nice. Well, so do you travel with this rugby team and go to games all over the country?
Yeah, actually, we have 2 practices a week for 2 hours in the indoor football facility, and we travel to UW, Western Washington University, all the way up near Canada. We go all the way down to BYU, Idaho State, Oregon State, U of O. We go all over the place playing different teams. So
yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, I'm not familiar with rugby. Is this like your off season then?
No, actually, beginning of the first semester of college, it's what we call sevens. And so you have 7 guys on the field for each team, and it's 14 minutes of play time, 2 7-minute halves. Super fast pace. It's basically 14 minutes of sprinting as hard as you can.
Huh.
And that goes on till October, and we have a bunch of game series tournaments. You play 5-6 games in a day or a weekend. And then you have the NCRC championships in October. And if you do well enough there, you get to go to the national tournament. We lost it by 1 match. We lost to, I think, Tri-Cities, and we lost to them, and that put us out. And so then right after that, we hopped right into 15s, where it's 15 guys on each team playing on the field with 40-minute halves for 80 minutes of play.
Wow. Yeah, so
that runs.
Is that just like another 40 minutes of spring?
All the way then to March-ish is when the tournaments start coming in and the semifinals and whatnot. So
nice. So are you like guys playing in the snow and everything right now then?
Oh, yeah. I think our first game is the 28th of January, so there's possible it's going to be a lot of snow.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, my understanding is a lot of parts of Idaho are getting hammered right now with snow.
Oh man, it's brutal out here right now. We got 2 inches overnight last night, and at 8:00 this morning it was raining. Still,
nice little slushy mess.
Oh, it's insane. We got basically all the streets are just lakes or rivers. I know on base this weekend during drill, I was moving a lot of snow because they didn't want the buildings to flood. We're in a state of emergency because of the flooding. Parts of a town about an hour away from here have been evacuated. Like, it's pretty serious out here right now.
Yeah, no kidding. Might as well play some rugby.
Yeah, right?
Well, Cody, when I was doing research on you, obviously doing a little bit of Googling like we talked about before the show here, one thing that kept coming up is junior shooter Cody Leeper, junior shooter. And obviously you're not a junior anymore, but it seems like you've been in three gun for quite a few years here. How did you get your start in practical shooting?
Well, it all started back with precision shooting. I did that for a good many years, went to the CMP Junior Olympics back in Camp Perry, NRA Nationals, and traveled with an Idaho team and everything. And I, through that, got connected with a man named Andy Fink, who runs Junior Shooters Magazine. He's the editor and coordinator. And I was kind of getting out of precision because it's quite boring. I mean, international style is 60 shots over the course of an hour and 40 minutes. And it's the same thing over and over and over. And it's just so repetitive and monotonous that I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And he was like, oh, hey, well, how about you come try out this Steel Challenge stuff? I'll give you a pistol to use, and then you write a review on it for me, and we'll see where it goes from there. I said, okay. And so I went out, did that, loved it. I was hooked the first time I went out and everything there. And then as we're doing that, he's like, hey, next month is Iron Man 3-gun. He's like, have you ever heard of it? I was like, no, have no idea what that is. What is 3-gun? He's like, well, you know what? Just meet me in my house and we'll go out and I'll show you what Iron Man is. It's like, okay. So we go out and I see Iron Man 3-gun for the first time ever. And I'm overwhelmed. It's like, oh my gosh, there's people running around. They're carrying bandoliers of ammo, like 100 to 300 rounds on them. This is back in the old days when it was way more brutal than it has ever been that I've shot it. And I was like, wow, this is way cool. And so I got huge interest right there. And he asked me at the end of the day, he's like, so do you think you can see yourself doing this? It's like, heck yeah. He's like, well, then let's get that started. And so the month after that, we started trying to get gear together and all that kind of stuff. And we got a couple other juniors together. And we all started training for it. We got a lot of help from Travis Gibson. He was basically my first coach that I ever had.
Oh,
and he taught us all the ropes, how to shoot 3-gun, skills, and things like that. And all this time I'm shooting USPSA matches and everything. And led up to that, we shot a little kind of a practice mock 3-gun about a month before Ironman. And I just had an absolute blast. And I knew from then on, I was like, this is a bad addiction. I was only 14 years old and I knew it was a bad thing.
That's perfect. Yeah, when you're an early teen and you can look at a situation and realize, yeah, this is going to be bad for me. Yeah, that's when you know.
Yeah, when it sticks in your head like that when you're that young, you're like, wow, this must be bad. And so a month later, my first 3-gun match I ever shot, first actual 3-gun match I ever shot was Ironman.
No kidding.
Yep.
Well, shoot.
Back in 2010, I believe.
Well, it sounds like you had like the the perfect first coach in Travis Gibson. He's been on the show a couple times. We've talked a lot about instructing juniors and how to speak to young people and everything. So, what was that experience like? Did you like understand like, hey, this is a a unique situation, or was it just like, oh, this is a dude with a mustache that's teaching me stuff?
At first it was, wow, this is a dude with a mustache teaching me stuff. Definitely was my first thought. I was like, who is this guy? But then got to know him really well. I got to say, Travis Gibson is an amazing coach. He got me such a great start into the sport. I could never thank him enough for all he did. And I was kind of a little punk back then. I was prideful. I was like, I know how to shoot. I'm cool. And it showed. And I was kind of a butthead back then. But I definitely learned a lot of things from him that I still carry on today. And through my shooting as a person and principles he's taught way back then. Don't ask me to name them. I just know, like, from those fundamentals, I never really changed much. I just added things to them. Mm-hmm. But I think he's definitely what gave me as good of a start as what I had.
Well, that's awesome. Now, so Cody, when did you realize that you were a butthead back then? Was that like a moment where you had, hey, I was kind of bad back then, or was it just like people telling you, hey, you've matured, which is code for you're not so hard to be around anymore?
It's a combination of both. Because I was so young, I didn't really realize any of the stuff I was doing. Just kind of being obnoxious or
Right.
trying to be part of the crowd. And I'm a kid, and everything. And so part of it was just me reflecting back at myself, being like, wow, I used to do that. Wow, I used to be that guy. And also part of it, big guys in the sport coming up to be like, you know what, you're turning out into quite a cool guy. And you really matured a lot. And there was one year, I can't remember which year it was, but I heard that a lot in a year. And I was like, huh, maybe I wasn't such a great guy in the beginning.
Well, that's it's constant improvement. That's what life's all about. So, good that you made it to this side.
Yeah. I hope to stay here.
So 2010, you shot Iron Man, and that was your first 3-gun match. So what was that experience like? Had to have been, a little bit of trial by fire. And what made you stick with it?
I love crazy things. I rode motocross, I played football. I did all sorts of crazy, wild things as a kid. And this was the most wild and crazy thing I've ever done, and the most intense, most pressure put on you at one time. I mean, it was just a lot of stuff all at once, and I loved it. I love being under pressure. I love having stress. And it really was just like, wow, this is something, I got to put time into to really be good at. And it challenged me. And I was like, I want to do this. I want to have this challenge. This is a cool thing. And so all through the match, it was overwhelming. I had no idea what was going on. Luckily, I didn't time out on any stages, which is a huge accomplishment for Ironman.
Yeah, no kidding.
I ended up placing 30th in TAC Ops in my first 3-gun match. So
wow.
I felt pretty confident with myself. And, I was looking around, seeing all these adults that placed behind me. I was like, wow, if I work at this, maybe I could be up at the top of there one day.
Yeah, that's pretty great. 30th for the, very first match, and that first match is Iron Man. That's not bad. Well, so it sounds like you have like the competitive gene, and you've mentioned that you've got a little bit of athletics in there too. So Iron Man probably played a little bit to your strength, right? Because there's physical challenges and obstacles you have to overcome.
Oh yeah, for sure. Iron Man is a very long match. It's an endurance match. Not necessarily like, oh, you have to run 150 yards and then drop down and go prone with a rifle and shoot targets out to 600. You're going to be tired when you're shooting a rifle, but there's no something like that. It's the fact that you're shooting a pistol for 80 rounds, and then you're getting arm pump, and then you load your shotgun and shoot your shotgun for another 50 rounds, and then you grab a rifle and you're like, and your muscles are locking up, they don't want to work, and you're tense, and you're breathing hard at that point because you've probably had about 75 yards of movement during all this, and run around a berm or clambered up a berm or carried a dummy or something. And so it's just a muscle endurance, really. Knowing how to control, like when your forearms lock up and your finger doesn't want to work right on the trigger, it's that kind of stuff that really gets to people.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So how do you train to overcome that specific challenge?
Just honestly, it's as simple as calming down and remembering your fundamentals. I'm a huge believer in that, and we'll touch on it later because it's part of a lot of the sports psychology stuff I'll go on about. But just calming down and doing things right how you know how to do them and how you've always trained to do them. Everybody does all the dry fire practice, but when the timer goes off, all the fundamentals from all of that kind of go out the window sometimes. And the biggest time to remember all that is when you're tired, when you're sore, when you're hurting, when you've fallen or done something like that. You got to remember, okay, it's really hard to do a really good trigger press right now, but I got to find a way to just squeeze that next shot off and make it right.
So the first match is Iron Man. You're overcoming obstacles with physical training and stuff like that. Then where did you take it from there?
I shot Ironman and loved it. And then Andy was like, well, we could do this next year, but there's also like a lot of matches around the country that are happening. I was like, huh, well, this would be cool. And he was also working on like a little sponsored jersey kind of thing going on and everything right then. And so leading up to the next year, I ended up shooting Northwest Multigun when I was back at a different location way back when.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, it was, hey, I like it more. And so he got all the jerseys together and everything. And we got a couple sponsors for the team as a whole, the Junior Shooters team as a whole. And we shot Ironman again the next year, but I planned a bunch of other matches. I was like, hey, you know what? I might want to travel and do a little bit of this. So I started traveling across the country with it. And that's really the big start of my career was, wow, there's some world outside of all this with it.
Yeah, so when you got to those other matches outside of, Idaho, where your home is, well, what did you think?
It was a culture shock because that's the first time I ever ran a stage 3 gun that was bay style, as we'd call it, and super fast, like 40 second stage. And I was like, oh, wow, I just got my butt handed to me. I didn't have 100 yards to run that I could get on these old guys. What is this? And so my shooting skills was like, wow, I got to really work on my shooting skills because it's a different animal. It's not the same. You don't have a lot of movement. You don't have a little couple places where you can make mistakes and recover from. It's you got to be right the first time and not the second time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a very good point, and it's one thing I struggle with on bay matches myself. So then, once you had that experience and that that culture shock, like you said, how did you change your practice?
Just started gearing towards that, running drills accordingly, making sure, like running a plate rack. It's not about running it fast; it's about running it right. Misses equal time. And so, training on that, trying to be better in the way I executed things, trying to develop my skills better, my execution better, and really just at this point, it was still developing as a shooter. All the typical drills and things like that I had to still implement and keep on so that I could develop as a shooter while trying to figure out my own style, because nobody is the same in 3 gun. No guy shoots the same as the next guy. And so I was kind of self-identifying in all this too. I was developing as a shooter and self-identifying as, okay, this is how I'm going to be as a shooter. And so that was kind of what my training was geared towards, was how to shoot faster, more effectively, and more efficiently while finding something that I'm really good at that I can key on. And for me, that was movement. Movement is a huge factor in what I play to my gun game now. I believe the most time you can get from little small stages and even big stages is in the movement. We all, at the very top level, we can all shoot a stage 1 for 1 and not miss a shot, not take an extra shot, and just clean the stage. Well, we all shoot pretty fast, and so it's going to come pretty close if we're all just standing and shooting. But where we start to separate ourselves is the movement in those stages. And I figured this out a long time ago. I didn't know how to properly execute it, but I figured out movement was the key to being fast in these stages. You use your movement more effectively, you save time.
So what kind of drills do you do then to work on your movement? How do you improve your movement as a shooter or a 3 gunner?
Isolation drills. Back then I can't remember exactly what I did, but nowadays I'll do isolation drills. So I'll sit there and, like, if I'm in the gym or something, I'll find a medicine, those half medicine balls, and I'll sit there and I'll try to do workouts with my upper body while keeping my lower body stable, and then I'll try to rotate that around and do upper body stabilization while I'm working out my lower body in a way. And if I'm at the range, I actually took a laser to the range one time, and I put a target out, and I tried walking and finding a way that I walk most effectively and I move most effectively without moving the laser around very much. I put, I think, a 6-inch circle out, and if I could move from 25 yards and get closer and walk up to that target and not come off that plate, that's very effective to me. And so the way some people move compared to mine was a lot different, and they didn't work for me. So I had to find my own way of how to isolate my body and isolate the way I walk and everything to be able to hold that laser steady on that target. And so I did that for a couple months, and I finally figured it out how I did it. And once I did it, I just sat there and I repeated it over and over and over and over again. Everywhere I'd walk in the house, I'd be walking like that. Just get it ingrained in my body. And now it's second nature. I don't even have to think about it. I don't even have to say, okay, I got to move like this. I just do it. And so it was a lot of repetition, and it just ingrained yourself with how to move good for your body style and the way you walk.
Huh. I feel like that type of dedication and that scenario that you just said right there, where you're actually going out to the range with a laser and a 6-inch plate and you're trying to figure this out, just trial and error. I feel like there's a big difference between like just a, normal weekend warrior shooter that goes out to, weekend matches, maybe one major a year, and is happy with just whatever performance they can put together. And then the person that's going to actually put all that gear together, go out to the range and then practice that for hours on end. There seems like a big separation there, and maybe that's what separates the the top 10, top 20, top 15, whatever you want to call it, from the rest of the pack.
Oh yeah, I definitely believe that. I got to say right now, I hate going to the range and working on stuff like that or dry firing. I don't think I've dry fired, like actually dry fire practice in the last 2 years. Maybe possibly, actually, I think 3 since I started college. I don't think I've actually dry fire practiced except for I will learn how to quad load. And I absolutely hate it. I got to the point, I remember one time spiking my shotgun over the berm just because I was so frustrated and mad. And I was like, why am I doing this? This isn't fun. This isn't cool. I look like a dork out here. And I wanted to be better. And so I did it just because I wanted to be that top guy. And so as much as I hated it, as much as I didn't want to do it, I did it because I wanted to be in the top. I wanted to prove a point. I wanted to be like, hey, I might be a kid, but I can do this too.
So then you mentioned you haven't dry fired in 2 years, and it can be challenging when you're in college to dry fire because a lot of dorms don't allow guns in there. Student housing doesn't allow guns in there and stuff like that. So you won the 2016 Surefire World Championship in TAC Ops and 2015 Limited. So you're obviously maintaining some sort of proficiency. How are you doing it?
I don't get to touch my guns hardly ever. The place I'm living at now and is very small. I can have my guns here, but there's just no room after I have all the stuff I need for school and work and whatnot. There's just barely any room, and I don't feel secure enough putting it out in the common room or this or that. And so, because I share this place with 3 other guys, and then beforehand I was living on campus, and so there was absolutely no guns. That was a big no-no.
Right.
And so my parents live an hour away from school, and that's just a pain in the butt. I don't really have the time to just drive out there for an hour to spend 3 hours dry firing to come back an hour. That's 5 hours in a day. Or it's a minimum of at least 3 hours because it's 2 hours, an hour there and an hour back. So there's 2 hours gone just in commute.
Half hour to talk to mom.
Yeah, make that an hour. And so what I figured out, it's something I figured out a long time ago from wrestling. Back in wrestling, I had this coach that taught me to anticipate what your opponent's going to do. And I questioned it, and I was like, how? And he said, well, by recreating 5 different scenarios in your head and know 5 steps ahead of what he's going to do in 5 different scenarios. I was like, what? That sounds crazy. Little by little, I started training on that. And I would sit there before a match and I would run through my head a million different scenarios. Like if I was going to go up, I knew exactly how I was going to initiate my first contact. And so I'd go up and do that. And if I did that, I had 3 things he was going to do in my head. I only got it to 3. He was optimistic with 5, but 3 is about the limit. And I would have 3 different things that I know he was going to do. And as soon as he'd start to do one of them, I was already in my head and visualized that he was going to do that. And so I'd already have a counter ready, and I'd go into that counter, and I'd find a way to get them on the ground, and then I'd start wrestling from there. This was at the beginning of, each match. I only did it for certain, like, first couple scenarios in a match, and then after that it was, you got to go on skill because you can't predict everything. That's a lot to remember. And so I took that, and I was thinking one day, I was like, wow, maybe I can take this, because I had it to a point, I had a visualization that I could feel exactly what they were going to do. I could see what they were going to do, and it was almost like I was actually there. When I was sitting there on the side of a mat before a match, it was almost like I was already in the match, because I had such a visualization of it, and I've done it so many times over tournaments and tournaments and tournaments that it got to the point I was visualizing it and feeling it. I was like, wow, I wonder if I can apply this to this new shooting stuff. And so I started working on it and working on it. And now I will go. So Multi-Gun Nationals happened earlier this year, and I ran a stage near perfect. I thought it was one of the best stages I've ever run in a long time. And so as soon as I was done with that stage, I got off to the side and I ran it through my head about 60 times, just exactly as it just happened, about 60 times. And then I started putting my stuff away, and I kind of avoided everyone so they wouldn't break my concentration. And I ran it through my head over and over and over and over and over again until it was perfectly ingrained in my head. And then I left it alone for a while. A couple hours later, when I had a little bit more time, I ran it through my head even more. And to where the point that I remembered exactly what my feet were doing, exactly what my hands were doing, exactly what my head was doing, and exactly what my eyes were seeing. And then after that, I'll take that and I'll run it through my head over and over and over again, more, to the point that I'm feeling what the trigger feels like. I'm seeing the recoil of the rifle. I'm feeling almost like feeling the gases come out of the gun, like as if I'm back in that stage. And I can remember and tell my mind exactly how that trigger is supposed to feel, because I remember how it felt during that stage, how my movement felt, and everything. And so I take all the elements together, and it's basically a repetition thing. Repetition is the best thing you can ever do. We do it in dry fire and whatnot, but repetition is in many forms, like mental or physical. And so you can take that mental training and that mental remembering how things felt, and if you go over and over and over in your mind, even though you're not actually touching your guns, you can still train yourself on how things are supposed to feel. And so I've done that for the past 3 years. I will remember a stage and I will run it through my head 1,000,000 times. And if I do take a stage that I may have had one mistake on, I'll change it. I'll say, okay, this is how it was supposed to feel, and basically change the memory of that stage to the point I ran it perfect. And then I remember how everything felt in that, and then I'll improve upon that. Change up a little thing, like maybe I could have done this better, and I'll modify it to where I have a couple stages in my mind that I didn't run perfect, but by the end I ran them perfect, because I changed what the memories were and changed my mind and told it how I'm supposed to feel during that stage. And so I know, like, I can pick up my gun and I can pull the trigger once, and that was a perfect trigger pull, because I ran it in my head about 500,000 times, because I do it almost every single day before bed.
Cody, I love this topic, man. This absolutely fascinates me. I've read a bunch of articles that relate to weightlifting and visualization, and I'll send you one after we talk here, and I'll include it in the show notes as well, because it's fascinating that how powerful the mind is. And in this study, it was a Russian study, and the people that visualized half as much as let's say it this way: people that visualized 50% and weightlifted 50% had the exact same gains in their max lifts as people that weightlifted 100%. So the fact that you're able to translate this into shooting, I absolutely love. But one thing you said there was that you changed the stage you ran to make it perfect. Like, I had never considered that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a fairly new concept I started working on, because I was like, why would I have, if I'm trying to maintain something that's perfect, if there's one little flaw in that, why would I take it and keep it in there? Then my mind is thinking, okay, it's okay that you have this one little flaw. You can get past it. No, I don't want that flaw. I want a perfect stage. And so I'll change it and be like, this is how it's supposed to be. And then I can tie it all back together, and it's actually improved my game since then. It's just, Yeah, like you said, it's amazing what the mind can do. And I think with our sport, more technique uh, involved sport, a more methodical sport than weightlifting. Weightlifting relies a lot on physical strength and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of technique involved. But I think with ours, it's much more so. So I
Yeah.
think the mental training like that and the visualization is way more important.
I do, and I agree with you there, and I think that is one of the big parts of dry fire is the mental repetitions that you're making while also doing the physical. Because with dry fire, there's no noises, so you're more aware of what's going on. There's no crowd of people watching you or perceived to be watching you, as generally your squad doesn't care how you do, and that I think is super beneficial when you're in a situation like you are, where you can't touch your guns, to just put that mental dry fire in there. Now, so you mentioned that you did this in wrestling. So wrestling was early on in your life, is that right?
I wrestled for 12 years from the time I
Wow.
was 4 years old up to like the sophomore year of high school. It was a long time.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So that is a long time. So this visualization you've been doing for a long time. Then, what you described sounds like super complex and like a little overwhelming to me, who is a guy that has never done this. If I was going to like dip a toe in there, does it get better? Is it going to be easier the more I do it, or is it just going to be whatever my first visualization is going to be how Dave does it for the rest of his life?
No, it definitely gets easier the more you do it because you learn your own head. I could try to describe step by step exactly how I do things, and I might find one person in this entire world that could do it the same way I do because their mind thinks like mine. But we're all individuals and we all have our own personalities, so we all have different ways we think. So I would tell people different ways to start, but then after that, you got to develop your own system. And it definitely gets easier as you go on. Like I'm still finding out things that I can do and I can mentally train with and different tools I can use to aid my mental training constantly, even to this day. And so, like one of the things at the start, I was told by one of my coaches in precision, because we have a ring on the front sight that goes around a dot downrange. And so it's a ring around a dot, and you put that ring around the dot perfectly and then pull the trigger. It's a weird way of shooting and it's a weird sight system. I love it though. And what he would tell me is, he said, every time you see something that's a circle and you're not busy, just look at it, visualize it, and watch a ring go around it and see a perfect ring around it. And then mentally simulate a trigger pull. And I thought about it. I was like, wow, okay, that's a good concept. And so I did that for a while. And it got to the point that little circle that I put around things in my head visually would start to wiggle like it was being held by my body, like I was trying to support the gun. And so it got to the point I would try to break the trigger at the right moment and everything too. And so that progressed right there in and of itself.
Dude, I love that topic. I mean, there's so much depth here. There's so many different applications. Like you can use that for your reticle on your rifle. You can use it on the front side of your pistol, your shotgun, etc. And you can like do it in your office with things that are just sitting around on your desk.
Yeah, I mean, you can put
anywhere.
a couple little smaller targets, like a small mock-up target that's only like 3 inches big, put it on your wall in your office. And whenever you need just a mental break, have a couple of them up and just look. And don't even pull your arms up. Just look at it and visualize yourself bringing a gun from a draw, going up, and a perfect sight picture on those targets as you go 1, 2, 3, 4. And just visualizing that perfect sight picture on those and, working into, you can visualize a recoil of a pistol or a rifle or shotgun or whatever on those targets as you go by them. That right there could do you huge, because if you're visualizing perfect sight picture, your mind's going to think, oh, I need that sight picture. I need that front sight or whatever it is you choose to visualize. It'll automatically think that's what I need. And you'll actually stop yourself and you'll come to naturally see that faster, see it better, and ultimately adjust the way you're holding and the way you move your gun to be able to fit that visualization better. And it's something you can constantly train. And so it's not like dry fire where, it's on and off, on and off. I could do it 50 times in a day. I can't dry fire 50 times in a day.
Right. Well, and it's the concept, to bring it back to physical training, of greasing the groove, right? It's like putting a pull-up bar on a doorway that you pass often and just doing 1 or 2 pull-ups as you pass through it, instead of stopping and doing 50 pull-ups, all in a row. Where most people can't do that, but if you pass by it 20 times a day and you do 1 or 2, then now you've got a good number of repetitions in for the day. So that one target, sitting in your office or in the kitchen or whatever, turns into an opportunity multiple times a day when you pass by it.
Exactly. And that's the one thing with dry fire training is you get physically fatigued. I mean, I know guys will do an hour-long dry fire session, and I think it's crazy. I think it's actually almost redundant, because at some point your muscles are going to get tired. The same repetitive action. And no matter how much we try to be perfect, we start to get sloppy. We start to get sloppy on our trigger pulls. We start to get sloppy on our sight pictures, everything. I don't care, how good I am. I know I'll get sloppy if I do it for too long. I'm just going to get fatigued. I'm going to get bored. I'm going to get unfocused, or something's going to distract me, And so if I do long dry fire sessions that are over, 15 minutes even, possibly even 10, I'm going to get bored, distracted, or I'm going to get fatigued, and I'm not going to want to do it anymore. I'm just going to be like, meh. And so to me, it can sometimes be detrimental to do too much dry fire practice. I've learned, because you're not being perfect in the way you're doing it. You are getting a little bit sloppy and everything. Yes, you need to supplement the mental training with the actual dry fire, but dry firing for long periods of time, I believe, in what I've researched, can actually lead to imperfections.
Yeah, from my own personal experience, I can say that I do get, a case of the efforts, as I like to call it, at the end of a dry fire session, where I'm just kind of like phoning it in, and I'm probably a lot sloppier on the side alignment than I would be, or getting that quad in there and stuff. So I feel like the gold for me is somewhere in the middle. But yeah, the sessions for me generally stay under 30 minutes.
Yeah. One of the best examples I can give, and I actually did it on purpose, because a lot of people are like, oh, mental training has its place, but, it only has a limit. You still have to grind out this and that. And so when I learned a quad load last year, I said, you know what? I'm going to prove a point right now. And so I got my whole setup and everything, and I spent 2 hours training myself how to quad load. That was it. And that was in 30-minute increments until I reached about 2 hours. And then the next match I shot, I just picked up my stuff, ready to go. Beeper sounded, and I shot the stage. Didn't drop a quad, didn't miss a beat, just they flew in, just like I'd been practicing forever. And it was because I had those 2 hours of practice just to get my technique down, my form, and figure out how I quad loaded the best. And then I visualized. I mentally went over and over and over it a million times. Day in and day out, whenever I had a chance, I was always thinking about that visualization, feeling it, knowing how I should put those quad loads in and everything. And so I can quad load pretty dang fast, and I have dropped 1 quad load in all the matches I've shot. And that's 2 hours of actual physical training, and the rest mental.
Well, that's a testament to it right there. That's amazing. So if me or someone listening who doesn't have, tons of years of experience in mental visualization like you do wants to get started, how do you take something simple like, or complex, as you want to call it, as the quad load, and describe how you would start with the mental visualization to perform that activity?
Honestly, when it comes to mental visualization, if it's a new thing, I wouldn't start somebody out on something like quad load. I would want them to try, like we talked about, putting the things up in the office and visualizing sites and doing that for quite a while before trying to do things like quad load. Because quad load has a lot of moving pieces. I know mine is a 10-step thing for one load. It's 10 steps for me, all broken down individually. And so that's a lot of moving pieces. It's a lot of things to remember. It's a lot of things to visualize and feel while you're thinking about it. And so I think like if you're going to go into quad loads and something very complex, I'd break it down into the very simple things that you really need to work on, like the perfect grab, like remembering how the feel of your hand going down onto the caddy and grabbing those shells in a way that they come out clean. I think that's one thing I would have them focus on for the longest, because I know that's where quad load can be made or break, is on the grab. You know, if you go too fast, you're going to crumple them and do them weird. If you go too slow, well, you're being inefficient. So I think that's the point I would keep them at for a long time, is visualizing that one thing. And then after that, I think I'd break it down into just the getting them in the gun, you know, after that. And then once they do that for a while, then step it up and tie those two together. Not the movements in the between, but the actual load and the grab. And then once that's been done for a while, you stair step it up to bring your gun off the shoulder and just visualizing gun off the shoulder or gun on top of the shoulder, however you're going to quad load, and do that for a while. And then stair step it up again and just add more steps onto it until you have an entire quad load going through. But if you start running into hitches on it, back it up, just like we would do in progressions for anything else. If you start to run into troubles or, you know, you're not visualizing it right, backstep it a little bit and work on it more and more and more. I mean, you have all day, every day to work on your mental training. Don't try to rush it. There's no reason to. Your mind's always going to be there, and you'll always have time in a day. Everybody says, well, I'm so busy. It's like, well, I do most of mine as I lay in bed going to sleep. So.
Yeah, and that's a perfect time to do it because, you know, the room's dark, you're focused, your eyes are shut, and you've got all that, you know, excuse me, you're down regulating, you're getting ready to go into slumber. So it's a good time to imprint those memories in your head. And it's probably, yeah, I mean, sleep, it's the perfect time to do it. That's when you make your memories.
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually is part of the reason I do it at night, is because you remember things better when you do them right before you sleep. And it's just a little bit, and there's some psychology that says otherwise, and there's some that says it does, but it can help a little bit. I mean, with every little advantage, why not take it?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so then, so it's a super interesting topic. I want to move on a little bit here, kind of pivot just a little bit, but still on the mental training. We were talking before the show about how to keep your head straight and have the best match you can. So there's a lot of people that listen to the show, Cody, that maybe haven't shot their first major match, maybe haven't even shot a 3-gun match. So can you break it down to like its simplest form of keeping your head when you're shooting?
The easiest thing I can say right now is worry about you. There's 150 to 300 shooters around you, but none of them matter. The only person that matters is you. You're shooting against yourself. You're not shooting against them. You're shooting against yourself. I know a lot of guys get wrapped up in scores on practice score. Practice score is the greatest, worst thing that's ever happened to our sport. It's awesome. It's convenient. And I love how easy it is to score. Results are instant. But it's made a lot of guys prima donnas, and a lot of guys go home and analyze, oh, well, I got to get this on this stage or this on this stage, but he's going to beat me on this stage or this or that. And it's like people work themselves up way too much, worrying about everything else other than what they should be. I know a lot of times at matches, I don't look at scores. I don't look at scores until I've shot my last stage, or maybe right before the last stage. I'm like, I wonder where I'm at. Oh, and sometimes I really get mad at myself if I do look before last stage because it was a bad thing and I'm getting myself under a lot of pressure. I'm like, oh no, like it's close.
Now I got to perform.
Yeah. And so it freaks you out. You might not think, you might walk up to stage and be like, okay, I'm confident, I'm ready, I'm not worried. But in the back of your mind, there's still a little piece of you going, oh crap, I got to do this right. And so I know I'm not able to separate enough to where I can't look at scores and be like, oh, no worries, and just not care, because I have such a competitive drive that I want to win. You know, I'm not there for second place. I'm there to win. That's what I spend all the money I don't have on, all the travel, all the time. I spend it all to be there to win and see people, but mostly to win. And And so I don't look at it because I know I'm going to get too worried about it. Especially when you're new, you're not going to go out there and win a major, try to do the best in your local matches, but go out there and try to improve upon yourself. Shoot the game you're able to shoot. That's probably the biggest thing I can say, especially for like new guys, on mental stuff. Don't worry about the people around you. Just work on your game. Work on what you do best and what you need to focus on, and know where your weak points are and fix those.
To build upon that, I would also add that your squad is not judging you. That's something I felt like as a newbie shooter quite a lot is if I don't shoot well here, the squad's going to think I suck or whatever, and that definitely gets in your head. But once you realize they all want you to do good, but if you don't, they're still going to talk to you as long as you reset.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I know I worried about that a lot back when I was younger, I should say. I'm still young. Is I was worried about like how I looked to people and everything around me. I was really concerned about that. And I learned more and more and more, it doesn't matter. Everybody's out there to help you, and you to help them. And I know you come off a stage and you just had a huge blow up or something went horribly wrong and everybody's staring. It's not because they're laughing at you. It's because they're like, oh no, what happened? Like, holy crap, is he okay? Do we need to get new gear? Does he need ammo, like this or that? They're wanting to help you, not hinder you. And so that was a big mental shift because everywhere else in the world you go, everybody is judging you, it seems like.
Yeah.
And so I can definitely agree with that. Don't worry about what others think. Do you.
Yeah, so the biggest thing that a new person can take away is do you, and just shoot the match that you can shoot.
Yeah. I can give a good example. Casey Ryan is a new shooter on the team I shoot on with Pete Rensing, his team, iScope. She's a new junior on it because I used to be it, and so she took my place when I became not a junior anymore. Wonderful person, awesome girl, great ambassador to the sport. She came in not very experienced and was freaking out, every big match she went to, and Pete invited her down to Surefire. He got her into the match and everything, and she had been shooting a lot of USVSA local 3-gun matches and everything, and she went up to Surefire and went and looked at all 15 stages and was freaked out, super freaked out, scared, like, oh my gosh, these are so insane, so crazy. I looked at her, I was like, hey, what have you seen here that you haven't done before? And she kind of thought about it for a second. I was like, there's not a single thing on this gigantic match, on these huge stages, that you haven't done before. Every piece of every stage is something you've accomplished before, something you've shot, or something you've done at some point. So why freak out about it? You can do it. Don't work yourself up for it. You can do it. So just go do it. It seems super, super simple and kind of corny, but just go do it. Don't worry about it because, even though it's a new thing and maybe a bunch of crazy stuff's put all together on one stage, you've done it all before, piece by piece, but you have. And so don't fret it. You can do it. Just go out there and execute, And a big thing on people who are new, have fun.
Oh, yeah. Have fun is huge. I have kind of a similar moment. I was walking stages this year at Blue Ridge, and I was getting frustrated because I couldn't see any of the targets because they don't paint any of the targets, and they hide them in trees. So targets are hidden, targets aren't painted. So now you got to ask like 13 people, do you see this target? Do you see this target? Oh, no, they took that one out, that kind of thing. So I was getting a little bit frustrated, and I ran into Becky and Mark Yackley, and Mark says, so what do you think? And I was like, I can't see any of the effing targets. And Becky gives me a hug, and she's like, just say I'm going to do the best I can and have as much fun as I can. And we had a good laugh. And then that was the reset that I needed, was like, oh yeah, like just shoot my game and have some fun here. And we'll find those targets when the time arises.
Exactly. That's a big thing. I mean, you're not out there like, I know I'm guilty of it. I'd watch shooters go out before me and blaze down, and it's like, oh man, I can do that. No, I can't. No, you got to go out there and shoot to your thing. You watch everybody else around you, but know what you're capable of and what you can do.
Yeah, and I think that builds off of the blessing and the curse of practice score, like you're talking about. Like I hear a lot of guys, saying like, "Oh, I need a 32 on this stage, or I need a 62 on this stage," because they've looked at the results and they've analyzed them so much the night before that they know now it's like what they need to perform when they get there because so and so, shot it better, or they're neck and neck with someone and they want to maintain their lead. And I think, like you said, that can be super detrimental to your game.
Oh yeah. No, if I could, I would like to turn off all practice score available updates. Like your scores are there, but like just trust that they're there. You don't need to look at them. You're fine. Arbitration periods after the match.
Yeah.
Because it freaks everyone out. It becomes a huge thing, and it is very detrimental to a lot of people. And so, like, I know at Surefire this year, I actually came in with a strategy. I knew, there's a lot of base type stages. I shot nationals this year, was right up there with Nils Jonassen and Daniel Horner and everyone shooting good. So I was like, you know what? I'm consistent. I'm good. I just need to try to be penalty free. Definitely wasn't. It was kind of a bad match in places. But I knew if I stayed consistent through all the base type stages, as soon as we got to the 2 Ironman style stages, I knew I'd pull ahead and gain some points. How much? I don't know. But I knew I could do well there, and I knew I would do well there. So I didn't worry about it because I know I'd gain a bunch there. And all the base type stages that I might have lost a little bit on, I gained more on those big stages than I lost on the little stages. Just being consistent and not safe, but still pushing it, but almost on that safe side and just knowing to execute right.
Yeah, that's again shooting your game, right? Playing to your strengths.
Exactly. It was shooting my game. I know my strengths. I know my weaknesses. I know if I have a rifle in my hand, things are going to go very, very well. And there's a bit of long range stuff. And so I knew I was like, okay, I can do this really well. I'll, have some good times over here. So these little stages, these little hiccups, I might be a couple seconds behind John McClain or Keith or this or that. But they're not going to matter. I'm going to gain some back on them on these long stages.
Right. Okay, so knowing yourself and shooting to your abilities, what are some other things that newbies can keep in mind, or even experienced shooters for like sports psychology type stuff?
It's something everybody's heard at some point in their life, but negativity. Cut down on the negativity. A principle is, I know Pete Rensing has a really good way of teaching new shooters. There's no really wrong grip. There's just a better way of holding your gun. Nothing is really wrong. You can be accurate with any kind of grip you want, but you're going to have a better way of doing it. And so that's a positive way of thinking about it all. And if you keep that, it's going to boost your training. Your mind's going to think, okay, I'm doing this right. I'm doing this good. And so it's going to keep going with that.
Yeah, I like that. It's not that you're doing it wrong. There's just a better way to do it.
Exactly. That's a big thing. Like I know in rugby, when I first started, I was like, I have no clue what's going on. I've never done any of this before. And so went in and I just did my best. I was like, I can do this. I'm positive. And I went in there and just gave my all and didn't think any negative things. I learned a lot. And there was a guy parallel to me who had a couple of years experience that was like, hey, these guys know a lot more than me. He's like, I got to keep up with them. He's like, oh, no, I'm not as good as them. I'm not going to be as good as them. I can't pass as good as them. And that guy didn't progress hardly at all. And so it's a key there. Like I saw, positivity can make or break you. And it also affects your morale. It affects what you think about yourself, how motivated you are when you're training, you're thinking, you become less confident in yourself. Something that you do all the time, like shoot a play rack, be like, oh man, it's like 5 yards further than I usually shoot it. It's going to be a little difficult. Well, now it's going to be because you just thought it was.
Yeah.
you can do it. It's the same thing you do. Well, it's 5 yards farther. It's not a big deal. Just do it. Stay positive. Like, I'm going to get that. I'm going to shoot it and I'm going to kill it. Like, it's going to be awesome when I do this. It seems so simple and almost corny again, how like, oh, just stay positive. You'll do better. Well, it's not going to make you win a match just by being positive, but it's really going to help you overall maintain your consistency, help you finish out a match and stay on track for a long time.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and I guarantee that will make you shoot better, or at least enjoy yourself a lot more. I can liken it to I've done a lot of obstacle course racing, and I back home in Colorado I used to go to CrossFit Encounter, which is a CrossFit gym, obviously. But any time before a race or any time before a workout, someone would always say, "This is gonna suck," and it's like, yeah, with that attitude, it absolutely will suck. This whole 15-mile race that we're going to run here with 32 obstacles is going to suck so bad with that attitude. Or you can think of like how amazing it's going to feel when we're done, or how awesome it's going to be tomorrow when we talk about the memories, or just go along for the ride and enjoy the experience. But yeah, I hear you there. It's expectation definitely has a huge effect on the outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I can definitely agree with that. You're already beating yourself before you even started it.
Yeah.
I know the final stage of Surfire this year was a great example. We shot a very similar stage. They just changed it around for the last stage for the top 10 guys. I shot that stage, hardly missed any rifle targets. I'm like, okay, I got this, when I went on to that. But the shoot-off came off, and Scott Green was right behind me. I was like, I got to do this good enough to where he doesn't catch me. And I got in my head, and I was like, man, rifle's going to be kind of hard. And I broke my own values right there. And I struggled, and I threw a bunch of extra shots on all the rifle targets and everything. And so that right there proved to myself, hey, I just did it really great. And I got into my own head, and I did it really poorly.
Now, when you're done with that, how do you reset? Because like most people's inclination is to be like, oh man, I'm such an idiot. I knew that if I went in negative that I would have a negative outcome, and I did. God, I'm so stupid. I always do this. That's like the classic self-talk that people have. So how do you talk to yourself after that stage when you recognize that, like, oh, I thought the rifle portion was going to be hard. I threw some extra rifle targets. What's your inner dialogue like after that stage?
The exact words I hear in my head to myself are, it's gone. You can't fix it. Next stage. It's literally like we might try to push a little harder the rest of the match to try to make up time lost for a malfunction or this or that, but you can't fix what's already happened. It's always there. It's already in the score, that mistake, it's there. You cannot fix that mistake or that malfunction. You can't fix it. It's gone. Push it out of your head. You can't fix it anymore. Move on to the next thing. Reset. If it was a malfunction, figure it out, and when you get it figured out, a lot of guys are like, I don't quite trust it. Maybe it'll run, maybe it won't. No, go up. It's going to run. And if it doesn't, stay calm, remedial action, fix it, and then get right back in the groove. But always go in. It's going to work. It's going to do it. Yeah, I screwed up on that stage. Cool. I got this next stage to shoot. I better get ready for it. Basically just do kind of a mental wipe. Everything that happened beforehand doesn't matter anymore. It's about what's ahead of you. It's about the next stage. Always about the next stage. Not 4 down the road, not 3 behind you. It's the next stage. That's the only thing we got to worry about ever. And the only person you got to worry about on the next stage is yourself. Do what you can do.
Yeah, that's definitely good advice there. You're the only one that can affect what you need to do, for sure.
Exactly. You have the major power over yourself. You can make and break yourself. Nobody else is going to do it to you. You're going to do it to yourself.
Well, Cody, I love the topic of sports psychology, and you mentioned that you're going for your psychology degree. So is this like going to be like an emphasis for you, or is this just two passions that are kind of intermingling?
It's a little bit of two passions kind of intermingling. I've taken a touch on sports psychology and everything, and so I know a lot of principles and stuff that I can talk about, but I can't really because I don't know a lot of the details about them. So because I've just taken a basic class in sports psych, but it's something I am kind of interested in pursuing. There's not a lot of careers out there with it, but it's something that very much interests me. The other part I was going to look into is developmental psychology because that's super fascinating. That or abnormal psych with mental disorders and stuff like that, because the way the mind can fight your own body is just absolutely fascinating to me. And so I might emphasize one or the other, but I don't know which yet. I'm not quite to that point.
Well, it seems like you found like a pretty practical application in your own life for it. So it'll be interesting to see what you come up with there. Well, let's take a complete pivot here and then cover a hotly debated topic in all corners of the internet, and that's gear. What are your thoughts on gear for people getting into the game?
Like brand new guys?
Maybe someone who's shot their first couple matches with their Smith & Wesson M&P 15 or what have you, and they're looking for upgrades or how to get better with what they have.
This is definitely something I see a lot around here. Gear hounds. Everybody's got to have the best gear. And one of the things is gear really doesn't matter. What you can do is what matters. I shot for the longest time. The only thing I was a stickler on was my rifle because I'd been through the precision world. I was very particular about how my rifle felt and everything like that for a long time. But my pistol and my shotgun, I just figured out how they ran and I made them work. I ran a stock Glock 34 with a fiber optic front sight. The rear sight was still the factory adjustable rear sight. I ran that for 5 years. I ran an FN SLP weekend loading for another 4 or 5 years too. And everybody else is having all these innovations and whatnot, but I'm sitting there, I'm like, I still am learning my guns. Like, I don't know every little detail about them and every little detail about how they shoot and, the way they shoot. And so I just kept with what I had for the longest time. I know I stuck with the Glock 34 because I've had no reason to switch to a 2011. I'm not a good enough pistol shooter to need to for the longest time. I'm finally, after almost 8 years of competing, finally considering, maybe it's time for a 2011 because I'm finally adapted to that point that I'm actually a good enough shooter. I can need that, and that'll actually maybe give me an advantage. But I see a lot of guys out there. This was actually a discussion on one of the Facebook pages the other day. Someone posted like, hey, should I get this or this because I'm shooting Glock 19 and everything, and half the comments on there were, get a 2011. And he's like, well, this is a brand new guy who just started shooting.
Yeah.
He needs to stick with an easier platform. Why spend $3,000 on something that's not necessary? I see half the guys out there that push a 2011 super hard that, I want to see what they shoot a Glock like because they, miss a lot with the 2011. I want to see how much more they miss with the Glock.
Yeah.
And so I think you need to not take as much of an emphasis on gear. Gear is a big thing, but what feels right is most important. What fits you best and what feels right is what matters more than anything out there. I shoot a Seekins rifle because I like the weight. It's a heavier rifle with their 3-gun handguard, and it's a big billet upper, and I have a really heavy stock on it just because I like the weight of it. I don't know, it's just a preference of mine. I've shot heavy rifles all my life with precision and whatnot, and so I like that. All these guys are out there trying to make 6-pound ARs. Well, that's just not my flavor. I can sit out there and shoot just as good as them with their super fast ultralight rifles, but I can do so because I'm adjusted to my rifle. I love the way my rifle feels, and that's what I like, and that's what I've learned. Not because necessarily it's the best out there. I think it's the best, but someone else might not. And so gear has to be very much what you feel and what you're comfortable with.
It's an interesting topic whenever we start to get gear into the gear area, and it's because it is such a personal thing. And I have a lot of new shooters ask me like, well, what's your gear preference? What's this? And my question is always like, what do you shoot now? What do you like to shoot? What are your goals? That sort of thing. So it's kind of like one of those unfortunate things where you have to do trial and error to figure out what works for you. And you're fortunate with your experience in the precision world where you know what type of rifle. And then, a lot of people just like, oh, this is the pistol I have, so I'll go out and shoot it. And honestly, that's why I still have a Glock, because I started shooting a Glock 17, and then I got a Glock 34, and I have no reason to change yet.
Exactly, that's where I'm at. I went from a Glock 17 to a Glock 34 to a Glock 17L. I've just been lengthening the barrel for a long, long time.
Slowly over the years.
But yeah, the biggest thing I'd say is pick a platform, learn it and love it, and run the crap out of it. Like I know a lot of guys are debating on which shotguns to get. Like if I was coming in right now and I needed to spend the money, I would buy once, cry once, and get a Benelli. And I would learn it and love it. A lot of people are running them. There's a lot of spare parts out there. A lot of guys do work on them. And so I'd say, you know what, I'm going to bite the bullet and go buy a Benelli. I shot FN for a lot of years. It's a great gun, but now that I'm on a Benelli, I love it way more. And I'm running it like it's a scalded dog.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with the Benelli for sure, because it's been around for so long, and the platform's been perfected by so many great builders out there.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Everybody rushes to get a whole custom package done on their shotgun. Learn the platform first, because maybe you're not wanting to stick with it. Don't dump a bunch of money in it just to be like, I don't quite like it for some reason or another. And so I think when you're just starting out, even with the Stogers are very similar to Benelli. If you don't have the cash for it, just go out and run it and see if you like it. See if you like the feel. And if you do, learn it, love it, get to know every little detail about that thing. And if you don't really quite like it, try someone else's Versamax or Benelli or A5 or something and see if that little detail is fixed by one of those. And if it's not, maybe you just need to spend more time on that platform you have.
Yeah, I ran. So this always causes heat when I say it, but I ran a Mossberg 930 JM Pro, which is notorious for being a malfunctioner, this and that, and not appropriate, whatever. I picked one up in 2012, and I ran it all the way through half of this season, and I had problems. A lot of them were caused by me for not cleaning it very well and stuff like that, but it was never to the point where I could say this cost me the match. It wasn't something I did and I need to upgrade, and the upgrade I made was just because I wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. You did it how I would recommend it to a lot of people. I know a lot of guys who are out there, like I said with the pistol thing, same thing. It's not causing you to lose. It's your ability as a shooter that's causing you to lose. It sounds kind of horrible, but it's yourself that's doing it, not the gear necessarily. If your gun is jamming every other round, check your ammo. If it's not your ammo, it's the actual gun, try to fix the gun. And if it still just sucks, then change. I'm a firm believer in just running what you have for as long as you can.
I love that.
Training,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Training goes way more than any gear does. Because I know with my huge extensive rifle experience and how much I love rifles, I had a split case at Ironman. And so they ran me a new gun, because you can do that at Ironman. You can just run a new gun up to people right on the stage. And they ran it up. I threw a magazine in and went 1 for 1 on all the targets. And it was a complete 180 from what my rifle is. It was a 14.5 little super ultralight gun, completely different from what my gun was. And I still ran it like crazy because I know the platform so well that it didn't matter what gear I had. I still performed because of my skill as a shooter, not because of the gear I ran.
Yeah, and that is, it's the old phrase. It's the Indian, not the arrow, right? I mean, become a better marksman if you want to get better, right?
Well, I don't know. The Indians back then had really inconsistent arrow making techniques, so I don't know. It might have been the arrow.
Well, Cody, I love the gear topic. I like your point of view on it mostly because it aligns with my own, and that's how humans work. But want to change up a little bit more here, and I've actually got a question that I was told to ask you, and you can probably figure out who this is from by the question. And I guess it's more of a statement. It says, "Tell him that you heard how much more he enjoys shooting USPSA more than 3-gun, how he loves shooting as many alphas as he can, as opposed to 2 anywhere."
I definitely think I know exactly who told you that. Uh, I love shooting USPSA. It is something I never do, actually. I think the last time I shot a USPSA match, the only time I shoot a USPSA match in the last 3 years has been Pete Rensing's March Madness match when I go down there for spring break the last 3 years. That's the only USPSA match I've shot. And I do not know how to shoot for points. I can tell you that right now. I'm definitely that guy that's 2 anywhere go. Make sure they're on there and just keep going fast as you can. I got to say, I'm definitely trying to change that about myself because it'll tighten up how I shoot 3-gun. I am very sloppy with the pistol until it comes to steel. Then I calm myself down and make my hits, but I am very, very sloppy with the pistol. I actually, since I'm leaving in March for basic training for the Guard, I'll be gone from March to August. I won't be able to make really any 3-gun matches until, maybe Fort Benning or something at the end of the year next year. I was looking into actually going into USPSA and spending my money there and trying to improve my pistol game because I know it's very lacking in what it could be.
Yeah, when I first started shooting 3-gun, one of my early mentors, Ben Go, actually took me aside and he's like, "You need to shoot USPSA production." and I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Because you need to hit some A zones every once in a while." And for me, that helped quite a bit, but it did also slow me down a bit. And I've noticed that it's been hard for me to find that extra speed that I had when I first started. The you don't know what you don't know type of thing. So when you're looking at getting into USPSA, are you going to shoot like limited minor or something like that?
Yep, I'm looking to shoot in limited minor for a while because it's going to force me. Because I know my competitive self, if I shoot major and I'm placed up in the rankings, it's not going to be much of a challenge. The challenge is going to come from trying to do it with limited minor and push myself to make those alpha hits and really actually focus on the training that I'm going in there for. So I'm just going to get a little race holster and a new belt set up and run it and see what happens.
There you go. All right. Well, so that was our submitted question from Mr. John McClain, of course. So one of your teammates, a guy you shoot with a lot, and obviously knows you pretty well.
Yep. No. I can actually say that on John, he is actually the reason I kind of want to go to shoot USPSA better because he's a fantastic pistol shooter. And I've watched him for a long time, being teammate and whatnot, and he can shoot a lot of alphas, and he can go through a stage. I've seen him go through stage all alphas and everything, but then turn the switch, and do a 3-gun stage. And because he has that control and can know how to place rounds, he can just lay down some crazy things when you switch styles. Just because he has that discipline from USPSA, he can just turn the gas pedal on and just go mad.
Yeah, John is an absolutely incredible shooter, super fast, and yeah, you're right. I mean, the dude's he can do both, and it's cool how he has that ability to switch it in his head. Like I was just saying, my first USPSA match, I was shooting 2 anywhere, and apparently you're not supposed to do that. So it's cool to be able to have that ability to go back and forth.
Yeah, I learned a long time ago. Apparently, it's supposed to be controlled pairs, not double taps.
Yeah, exactly. Or as Jerry Mitchell says, "See Brown jerk trigger twice."
Yeah, I can't run like that. Jerry's a freak of nature, and I'll leave that to him.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, Cody, we're working toward wrapping up here, but a couple last questions I want to ask you. One would be, where do you see the sport of 3-gun headed?
To be honest, I almost see our sport growing beyond its means. I know there's so many people in the sport now, and there's so much demand for everything at all levels, sponsorships and gear-wise and everything. Matches are selling out. People aren't able to get in, just only shoot locals. If we don't find a way to accommodate the rising in numbers, we're going to eat our own self. Like, it could be detrimental, but it could also be super, super awesome for the sport in the future. But I'm going to be optimistic, and I think there's going to be good things. Even though that's in the back of my mind, I think there's going to be good things in the sport to come. A lot of new innovations, I feel.
And do you see this as like a lifelong passion, lifelong hobby for you, or is there something else in your future?
No, I definitely see it as a lifelong passion. I started to like rugby a lot, and I'm going to try to play for the men's team around here while I take this semester off of school. But it's definitely something I might have to take a couple of years off of because of financial, hard times and whatnot, and just recuperate life or focus on it for a while. But it's something I'll always be here for.
I like it. Well, Cody, we've I really appreciate your point of view on the game. It's definitely unique to be able to talk to someone who performs at your high level with as little practice as you're able to do, and I love the mental aspect of it. Cody, if you have like a final thought for the audience, what would it be?
Oh, that's a tough one. There's a lot of things I'd want to say, but
you got all the time in the world, man.
I think if there's one piece of advice I'd really give to people, I'd stick with the don't worry about other people, shoot your game. You can only run as fast as yourself. You can't push yourself harder to beat someone. If you're gonna beat them, you're gonna beat them because you played your game right. Don't try to outshoot your own ability. And then, as we touched on the gear stuff, like I said with the gear doesn't really matter. Get what your preferences are because that's what matters. But as far as what gear's best, there's a yes and no answer there because of what you're able to fit with best and what's actually best. And we can go on forever again about that, but I think those are the two biggest things I'll probably say about it.
Well, I love it. Cody, that's a great way to wrap up the show. Some great final thoughts. I really appreciate you taking a time out of your day to chat with me here on the Three Gun Show, and thanks, man. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, you're welcome. Been a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Cody Leeper. I really enjoyed talking about this topic with Cody. I am always fascinated at the power of the mind, and I've been doing a ton of research on mental training and learning in the past few months. There's so much great info in this podcast, and I really hope that you took something out of it and that you apply some of it into your own training. Actually, all of it. I mean, it's all great stuff. Thank you so much to Cody for being such a great part of this podcast. You can check out the show notes at threegunshow.com/episode 109 for support links and for show notes, including links to the article that I mentioned in the podcast. And don't forget to like Cody on Facebook and follow him on Instagram. While you're there, get your copy of the Three Gun Show match checklist at threegunshow.com/checklist. Thank you so much for downloading, listening, and subscribing to the show. I'm Dave Hartman, and I'll see you on the range.
If you are finished, unload, show clear.